Welcome to our conversation series on women investing in themselves with executive coaching and having sounding boards in our lives and how that's beneficial. My name is Rosie Von Leela. You can find me at vonleela.com, and I'm happily tweeting at Rosie Von Leela. And my background is I'm very passionate about creating mass human flourishing in the world, and I do that through speaking with people. This conversation today was inspired by Mr. Tom McCallum. You can find him at tommccallum.com. And I'm here today with his good friend, Alex Barker, who is out in the world being more pirate. We're going to hear about that. But Alex is an entrepreneur, and she and Tom have a relationship where they are sounding boards for each other. So I'd like to say welcome, Alex. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Thank you, Rosie. It's my absolute pleasure.
And would you share with us, what is this Be More Pirate about?
In a nutshell, it's about challenging the status quo. It's about recognizing that there are a lot of rules, norms, beliefs, ideas that we have that have been inherited, that are part of conditioning from our family, our culture, our cultural norms, our jobs, society at large, and that we need to step back and look at them more frankly and figure out if those rules make sense for us. And that can be done at a personal level, at an organizational level, and at a societal level. So there are all these kinds of levels of rebellion, as we call it in pirate terminology, mutiny. And I work with businesses and other organizations and individuals to help them to challenge those rules and create better ones for themselves.
And you co-wrote a book called Be More Pirate, and you ran an organization called Be More Pirate. And so tell us, how are you spreading this ethos out in the world?
So to just go back slightly, so the book Be More Pirate is written by my colleague Sam, and he published that in 2018, and he kind of got this outpouring of interest. And I came on board about 8 months later to help him turn it sort of just from being a book, a business book, into more of a social movement, a community. So the way that we run it as an organization, well, we don't really run it as an organization, because I actually like to challenge that norm as a thing. We're trying to work out a sort of different way of work. It's more like a kind of community or network. So part of it, I do a lot of work around supporting the community, running events for them, speaking to them. We do collaborative projects together, depending on what comes up. And that's across all sectors, like healthcare, education, private sector, entrepreneurs, generally people who want to challenge for good. So quite purpose-driven businesses, lots of challenger brands, that sort of thing. And then on the other side, yeah, it's more like a sort of consultancy, although we use the term insultancy. So it's consultants that tell the truth, because we notice there's a lot of dishonesty in the workplace, and that is really hindering problem solving around like the big sort of challenges that businesses have. So that the companies I'd work with would be anything from small, sort of small agencies or entrepreneurial startups, or big corporates. It really is a huge range. And we tend to run workshops, like 2 to 3 hour workshops, taking them on a kind of pirate journey, framing it in as pirates as these, as the entrepreneurs of the 1700s, really, who went out and created a whole new way of living and working together in a collaborative environment on their cruise. And how can you model that in modern organizations? How can you model that in business? How can you make it more democratic, more diverse, fairer, but still allow people to kind of bring their individuality, bring their own ideas, and so it's not a sort of, so it's a nice balance between the collective and the individual, and it's been really it's really taken hold in a lot of some quite surprising places. But I noticed that the idea of being more pirate is actually more effective when you're not quite there yet. When you can almost like sense the frustration building, that's when it's almost more effective than if you're already the kind of entrepreneur challenging a mainstream company.
So many questions come up. A very important one. I love this lexicon. You've given us 2 words from it. Where can one find this lexicon that you've created?
What, around pirates and mutiny and rebellion?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I notice it in some other books, and people have started to refer to rule breaking and rebellion a bit more frequently. But I don't know, I think it's something that Sam really took hold of when he started researching. He was looking for role models for leadership, really, recognizing that the kind of traditional leadership that we have, whether it's in business or government, is not working anymore. It's really letting everybody down. And so he was looking for a different kind of spirit to draw on. And he actually did a workshop with some young people in South Africa. I think it was in South Africa. And one of them said, when he first proposed the idea of a book about purpose-driven business, they said, this is really boring. Where's your usual stuff? Where are all the rockets and the fireworks and the pirates? And he just wrote it down. Where are all the pirates? ? I don't know. Where have they gone? I've gotten boring. And then that led him to research the history of piracy. And that's sort of when he uncovered all these ideas, and that lexicon kind of emerged. But this is one of the most powerful things about pirates, and the idea of Be More Pirate as a framework for organizational change is that it gives people a story. It gives people a kind of almost like a disguise or something, and a way to discuss between each other, this almost like secret code language. It's simple, but it's really powerful to be able to grasp onto that and say, okay, we're going to run our mutiny. What rule did you break? It really seems to take hold. And when we do the workshops, towards the end, we encourage people to figure out what rule they're going to break and what's their new rule. And we really encourage them to come up with something really catchy or like a bit provocative. So there's a lot of new rules that have swear words in, just because people need that sense of, right, this is pirate. This is, I think, I don't know if it's appropriate to swear on this video, so I won't. But the last one we did, they came up with F the metrics. That was the sense of and it doesn't matter if that doesn't become your new rule, it's the momentum, the energy behind it, the energy of the language, of the idea of pirates that gives people a sense of power that they didn't otherwise have. And that is, something that is drained out of the workplace a lot of the time, that personal power.
Yeah.
Which is where coaching comes in.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about that. So I'm curious. So you go out and you train people and give them a context for rule breaking, and you work with a coach and you've made that investment in yourself. How has executive coaching or coaching supported you in breaking your own rules?
Oh my goodness me. So much. Because this is the interesting thing, is that you don't even know what rules you have, or let's say what beliefs you're holding on to. Quite often they're almost they're subconscious or they're unconscious, because we are so conditioned from such a young age. So what coaching helped me do was almost like peel back the layers that I didn't know I had. And that's been incredibly I cannot do my work if I don't live my brand, if I don't practice what I preach, if I don't show up as authentically as I could be. I can feel it in myself if I'm not doing the same work that I'm asking the people to do in a session. So it's absolutely integral to me that I have these weekly sessions with my coach and we cover everything. We don't just, because I actually don't see that much of a difference necessarily between what we consider to be personal stuff and professional stuff. Like for me, it all blends and feeds into each other. So we cover everything from some of my, maybe concerns with relationships, all the way until I'm working out my business plan. But I think it's would be good to mention the kind of coaching that I do, because they're actually all based in the US, or it came from, and they all define themselves as pirates. And this was totally serendipitous. I got approached by the guy who founded the coaching company, said, we love Be More Pirate. We put it on as recommended reading to all of our coaches. So we really bring that spirit. And he said, do you want to come and do a talk to the coaches? And I said, yeah, sure. And then he put me in touch with one of his coaches who was based in London. And then and she just said, let me do a taster session on you. And from then I was hooked, because what the method that she was using, it was all about writing things down and then helping me to write down some of my experiences, go and read it out loud and go into it. And in reading it out loud slowly, it helped my brain to just make new connections that I'd never would have made had I not been forced to slow down and really recognize why I was making associations between different things. And that's just one of the techniques that she uses and that they teach. But I just, from then on, I thought, if that was one session and that's how powerful it was, I've got to do this. And it's completely changed my perception about coaching, about investing in myself. And I think that's also been a slow recognition for me in the last 2 years that half of my work is about transforming my own energy, because every time I show up to run a session, I am there to model the idea of pirates as much as I am to deliver information. And that is so much to do with my energy and where I am. And if I'm not bothering to work through anything, I can't be that person. I cannot be the leader of this of this movement and this philosophy at all.
It sounds like it helps you get clear and sort of empty out any stuff that might be in the way of you being the space for this work to happen.
Definitely. There's a question, one of the starter questions in Be More Pirate is, what are you letting get in your way? And I would run this in workshops all the time, and we would get so far, but I always knew there was more to go into, that this coaching level needed to emerge somehow. And what I've also learned through doing the coaching I've done is that a lot of the stuckness that I was holding was actually very much in my physical body rather than just in my mind. And the techniques that I've been taught, I've been learning through my coach have enabled me to let it go a bit more physically, because, and this comes down to the idea of rules and rule breaking. I realized that I was, even though I'm an entrepreneur now and I run my own show and I can do what I want and I can pick up the opportunities that I want and I had this wonderful freedom, I was still feeling this deep anxiety in my body around work and what it meant to be at work. And it's a decade or so of working under a manager and having performance reviews and having somebody kind of over my shoulder telling, I'm almost always turning around thinking I'm going to get told off for something. And it was mad. And I was thinking, well, I'm still holding this somehow. So realizing that anxiety was not always in my mind, but like a sort of tension, helped me to go into some of that. Yeah.
Did you ever read John Sarno's work, Dr. John Sarno? His seminal book was Healing Back Pain. It's all about how repressed emotions manifest in the body as tension. And his book, well, the title is, it makes it sound like it's all focused on back pain, but it's actually much larger than that.
Well, I definitely experienced back pains.
Yes. I'm going to check out. So before we wrap up here, Alex, I'm curious, what advice would you give to young women aspiring entrepreneurs? They don't even have to be young, women aspiring entrepreneurs or women business women. When is the good time to make an investment in yourself and get a coach?
As soon as you can, and actually a little bit before you think you can. So this is part of the risk-taking ethos of Be More Pirate as well. Push yourself a bit further towards the edge, I'd say, because we always encourage people to do small, bold actions. And I always say it's not in the outcome of the action, it's the person that you become when you take a chance on yourself, or you put a little bit more risk, something a bit more on the line for yourself. You will become a different person in the process of doing that. So invest before you're ready, take a chance. The chances are, all the fears that we have around, I don't have enough money, I'm going to go into debt and all this, chances are you probably are sensible enough to not let that happen. Or at the point when that happens, there's somebody that you can ask for help or rely on. So all of that is usually just projection. So definitely take the leap sooner. The other thing, the big thing that I'd say, and it's slightly a plug because I'm designing a coaching program based around this, but the biggest thing I've learned in the last 2 years is around public speaking and verbal communication, because that's not something we get taught particularly in the UK, not at school, not in workplace training. You get maybe one day on public speaking and presentation. And if I'd have known now back 10 years ago, that if I practiced my core messages, got really clear about my beliefs and practiced how to articulate them in a way that was influential, if I'd known how far that would get me, I would have done that. I would have practiced every day. So that as a core skill is something I want to support all female entrepreneurs, or any women that want to make change in the world, to work on that oral and verbal communication. That's a key skill.
What's one last question before we wrap up? What's one thing that a woman could do to practice her oral communication every day, you said?
Yeah. It's hard to say it to just one thing, but really the first starting point that I would work with a woman on doing is at least getting 3 key beliefs or messages about why you're doing what you're doing, and getting those, say, couple of sentences in a way that you really like the way that they're expressed, and just practice those so that you no longer have to think about them, so that they will roll off your tongue. So the second you're asked in a random meeting somewhere, that classic elevator pitch, that you just are there. You don't have to go, well, I kind of do this and then I kind of do that. You've got your 3 sentences that say, well, I do this, and I do this. And they're like, wow, that would be and that's quite a simple thing to do. So as long as you've nailed down those sentences and you're like, yes, I'm happy with how this sounds, you practice it enough, and it doesn't take that long, so that you don't have to think about it anymore. That would be my advice.
All right. Brava to that. Alex, where can people learn more about your work?
BeMorePirate.com is the main website for Be More Pirate. There's information about me on there. I would say there's a link to my website, my personal website, but that's sort of under maintenance right now. So it will be there, but alexbarker.co.uk is going to be my site. Otherwise, I tweet a bit. So that's at Alexandra Barker 1. And you can find Be More Pirate on almost every other social media platform.
Very good. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Rosie Von Leela. You can find me at vonleela.com and on Twitter at Rosie Von Leela. Special thanks to Tom McCallum for bringing us together and inspiring these conversations. His website is tommccallum.com. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Alex, take care and be well.